Greetings and welcome back to the Blender 102 class, where we continue the process of modeling this character that you see here. Now, where we left off last time was we were about to start the legs. We finished up the arms, and I'm sure there's little tweaks and adjustments that we want to make all over the place, but we're not going to dwell on that right now. So let's just go ahead and get started modeling out the feet of our character. Now, I'm going to take a look here in the front view, and it looks like something has become nudged. If I hit Control Z, that's why. It looks like I accidentally moved the model and didn't mean to. That sort of thing happens. Now, usually, when I am modeling a foot, and this is a pretty simple foot, pretty straightforward, I find that there really aren't... There aren't too many things that I need to worry about in advance. I know a lot of folks get caught up in wondering, well, how many edges should you have? Where should you start? What type of shape should you start out with? Now, I have a recipe that I like for a simple foot and a flow that I like to use when I can, and I just kind of augment it from there. It's that recipe that I'm going to show you. But the first part of it is just to kind of understand that I tend not to worry too much, at least in the beginning, about figuring out how many edges I have around the leg and figuring out, how many I'm going to have around the ankle and trying to reconcile those really, really early. To me, doing that way too soon just leads to problems. So what we're going to do is build our leg, build a foot, and then we'll just extend upward. So that's how we're going to move. Alright, so let's start off in the side view. And I'm in edit mode, as you can see. Let me put my 3D cursor right here at the ankle, jump around to the front view, put the 3D cursor right here at the ankle again, so we can kind of see that. A little bit of a discrepancy in the drawing, but that's okay. No big stress there. And I'm going to go to Add and drop in a cube. Now this cube is a little big, obviously. Let me also go ahead and turn off smooth. We don't really need it at the moment. Go into the front view, wireframe. And let's go ahead and frame up. Alright, so this is kind of where we're going to start. Well, this is where we're going to start. I'm going to rotate this so it kind of flows in the direction of the leg. Scale up slightly. I really don't want to scale in that direction. I'll just go ahead and start wiggling vertices from here. But before I start moving too many vertices, I'm going to jump over to Faces. So Control Tab F, grab Faces and delete. And delete. So basically take the top and bottom off of this box. Essentially turn it into a bit of a little band. And that's about all. Alright, so now back over here to the front view. Now obviously 4 faces is a little bit of a stretch. We need a little bit more. Now it just so happens we have 10 faces around our leg. I just happened to glance up and notice that earlier, which is really cool. If you wanted to, there's no reason why you couldn't go ahead and make 10 edges around the ankle. And there's no reason, we may end up doing something like that before the night's over, but let's just go ahead and get started with what I usually do, which is I kind of like to start out with 8 edges or faces, however you want to look at it, for a given ankle. So there's put a split here, and a split here, and a split here, and a split here. Now we need to round this out, obviously, so let's do that first. The way I will generally do this is just to kind of pull these out arbitrarily at the moment, so I'm not really worried about which direction they're going or the flow or placement right now. I'm just kind of getting sort of a round shape. Jump over to the front view, go into wireframe, and then continue from there. Pull these in. Pull these in like so. And I'm going to pull, well, not these, get out of there. You grab these boxes here at the front and pull them up. Wolf Knightley, I think you might be talking in BuzzNet, or thinking you're talking in BuzzNet for the Unity class. Okay, this is really none of those things, Wolf Knightley. Okay, so here's the shape that I've got. Notice it has a kind of an upward sweep at the front where we're going to pull out the foot, and sort of an upward sweep at the back where we can pull out the heel. And that's kind of where we're going to begin. We're going to start by extruding out a heel. So let's do that. I'm going to switch over to edges and grab 1, 2, 3, 4 edges at the back of the foot. And I'll just extrude those straight down to the bottom of the heel where it ends. Now immediately go over to the front view and get those lined up. So I'm just going to kind of slide them sideways for about where that heel is going to be. Now obviously we need a little more detail to get some rounding here. So I'm going to hit Control R, place an edge here, and just kind of slide that back. So now would probably be a really good time to kind of just see who's following along and how that's going. So let's do a quick ready check. All right, so we've got this shape in place, and Blender doesn't want to capture the Shift key. So let's try that again. All right, now I'm going to jump over to vertices and line these verts up with our drawing. I'm going to get those to sweep around a little bit. So that sort of roughs out the heel. It's not perfect though. I mean, I imagine we're going to do a lot of tweaking though. We still don't really have a whole lot of detail to work with yet. And if we take a look at the smooth view, you see we would probably want to take the heel vertices here and pull them back a little bit farther. It also may not be a bad idea to go ahead and add another edge loop in here. It makes it a little different than the foot that we created in the last class, but that's totally cool. I'll just drop in another edge loop and then position that. And you see that gives us a lot of room to create that nice flow along the back of the heel. And then what we'll do from here is grab these edges here at the front. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Go here to the side view. Let's extrude these down, like so. Come over here to vertices, and merge. And vertices, and merge. Okay, so here's our shape so far. Now, already at this point, if we take a look in the side view, we've got a vertex that more or less sits right at the center of where the ankle will be. If we were to put an edge loop just above that, like so, then we could grab these vertices on either side and just pull them out and start to create the curvature of an ankle. A simple one for sure, but an effective one all the same. And it looks like these vertices here that I pulled out on the front need to kind of be adjusted. They're all going straight down from that last extrusion, and that of course doesn't work very well. We could use a little bit of thickness in the heel, because the heel does kind of bulge out toward the back of the foot. So we'll round that out. Alright, now let's switch over to edges, and let's grab these 4 edges here at the front of the foot again. And what we're going to do is extrude these out right down the front of the foot, like so. Now, of course, we also need to kind of move those sideways to sort of line up with the front view, and it also looks like we could stand to scale them out to widen them a bit. Now, we already have some reshaping that can be done here. And, whoa, right click and not move anything around like that. It thought I was in the middle of a move operation when I was trying to move the viewport, so that doesn't help. And I'm going to add an edge loop right here in the middle of this new extrusion. As soon as that's done, let's go ahead and give everybody a moment who's trying to catch up. Okay, so let's jump into vertices and go over here to the side view. I'm going to pull these back a little bit. I'm going to pull these up a little bit. And we can already kind of begin to shape this into more of a foot shape. You're going to find that the bones that run down the inside of your foot, the ones that lead into your big toe, they generally make your foot thicker than the outside of your foot. So we're going to kind of start to make that happen a little early on. Now, in terms of the detail that I want to be able to shape the foot, I actually would like to have 2 edges here instead of just 1. So I'm going to jump over to Edges, Alt-click on this edge, and then just bevel this out. So tap W and hit Bevel. And I'll pull down on my percentage slightly. Okay, now with that done, let's grab these 3 edges here on the side, and these 3 edges over here on this side. We'll jump into the side view, tap the E key, and just pull these down to the sole of the shoe. So that includes that heel. Now, it looks a little messy. I mean, it is a little messy. But now we're going to take a moment and clean that up. So let's go ahead and jump over to vertices. We've got a lot of pushing and pulling to do, so let's kind of start adjusting the overall topological flow here. Now, I just added an edge loop right in between here, and you can probably already see exactly why I would do that, even though I just undid it. If I hit Control R and add an edge loop here, then I can take this vertex and I can merge those, like so. And I can merge those. Same thing over here. Just go ahead and split this. Merge, split, and merge. Now it's not too early to go ahead and start thinking about the shape of the foot inside this boot. So if we take a look at the hole we're creating, we can already kind of see how we can wrap around the heel, go ahead and thin things out a little bit for the instep, but more at the inside of the foot. And then let it start to get wider as we approach the toes. Not going to overdo it, but just add a little bit like so. You can take this edge and pull it down a little. And just clean up the flow of edges along the surface here. Okay, back here in wireframe, I'm going to take these verts and pull them back just behind this kind of change in direction that we've got here. And then wrap them around so that they sit right about here on the sole of the shoe. Now in this view, because I can see through, I can really clean up a lot of that curvature, so I can have some nice clean arcs of geometry that flow over the top of the shoe. I'm also going to take these edges here at the outside of the foot and start to pull them down a little lower. Again, just kind of getting that slant as you go across the bone for the big toe out toward the outside. Okay, let's go ahead and do a quick ready check. Alright, so at this point, I'm going to grab these edges all around the front of the foot. Let's see if I can grab those as an edge loop, and it looks like I can, which is great. Let's jump back over to the side view real quick, and I'm just going to do one small extrusion. Not very far at all. Immediately switch over to vertices, and these are the verts I'll use to kind of close off that change in direction so that we're ready to move forward into the toe region. Now, once we have that, I'm going to grab these, jump to the side view, and just start off by doing a little extrusion forward. I'm not going to come too terribly far, maybe just to about here. Let's go ahead and scale this down, but only in the Z axis. I just want it to get a little shorter, and I'll rotate it back a little bit. Maybe scale it down just a little bit more. So you see how we're getting that change in direction there. Now I'm also needing to check the front view because I'm sure, yeah, you can see here, we've already kind of lost a little bit of the shape that we should be chasing in the toe, but not much. We're actually doing pretty good. Let's turn on proportional editing, hit G, and I can pull that out a ways. Like so. There we go. I'll turn off proportional editing. And I'm going to pull these vertices out a little bit. Kind of make way for the toe shape. take a moment and clean up some of this detail. It's sort of a nicer flow and arrangement. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now, jumping out to the side view once again, let's grab edges, grab here. I'm going to pull these straight out in Y, but again, just a little bit. Take a look in the side view, and let's just switch over to vertices, and I'll start cleaning these up. Okay, let's double check at the front view, probably widen some of this out a little bit, pull some of these guys down. Okay, so that's all looking pretty good. Now, we've got, how many edges here around the outer edge? Or on the front of the toe here? We've got a total of 8 edges. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take these 2 edges here at the front and just close them. So tap the F key to close those. Matter of fact, let me do this real quick before I forget and go any further. Let's go ahead and turn on screencast keys. I'll grab these 2 edges and also hit F to close those up. Now, next step is going to be to make these all sort of close off. I'm going to take these 2 edges here at the top of the foot and extrude those out, like so. You'll see why in just a minute. If you're like, why would you ever do that? Don't worry, you'll see here in just a moment. Now, this big face we've created on the front of the toe, I'm going to hit Control R and split this up 3 times, so I have a total of 4 edges. Take these frontmost edges and just move them forward. Now, let me switch over to vertices, and I'm just going to kind of soften up the arrangement a little bit. Let's make sure we check the side view. These can be pulled up a little. Pull these back. This can actually be brought around to the side and add a little more rounding to the side of the shoe. And this little pair of edges here at the top that we extruded out, I'm just going to kind of soften their corners like so, so everything's kind of rounded. Now look what I can do. I can switch over to edges and just start closing straight down from one to the other. Grab vertices and just take a moment and get these all nicely closed off. And so we've got plenty of edges moving around the foot here, which is really nice because that should give us all that we need in order to bend and flex that foot a little bit as the character walks around. All right, so let's do another ready check to allow people who are following along to catch up to this point. So here's a really good question that just rolled in. How do you remove edge loops if you've added too many, like the reverse of Control R? Well, just select those edge loops. Now I'm going to undo this as soon as I do it, but I'm just showing you anyway. Select an edge loop, hit X, and dissolve that edge. Now select as many as you want to get rid of. Dissolve them, but make sure in your options that you also check dissolve vertices as well. And that just nukes that edge loop completely. So I'm going to take just a moment and do a few tweaks to my foot, just for vanity's sake. Need to round out the shape of the toes. This is getting a little bit too tight. Let's double check in the front view. That's pretty good. Obviously a lot of this stuff needs to be adjusted, so let's come over here, grab these guys. And, you know, we don't really have a top view of the foot, but we can see generally if you look at your own foot, your big toe kind of sticks out the farthest, and the others will kind of sweep back from there, so we can do a little bit of that as well. Now, if we switch over to the side view, and actually if we take a look at our drawing, there's kind of a really soft suggestion here of an actual sole to these boots. So I don't really need to be pulling these vertices clear down to the bottom. I need to actually lift them up a little bit. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Okay. Now I'm going to switch back over to edges real quick. Oh, that's not edges. This is edges. Now what I want really are just the edges here at the very front of the sole. So basically once we get away from the heel. And I want to scale these down in the Z direction. So I'm going to hit S, hit Z, and then hit 0, and that'll flatten those out nicely. And go back over to the side view for just a moment. And we've pretty much added all the detail we're really going to, so now would be a good time to sort of clean up the profile, and anything that we want to sort of match up more closely with the drawing, we can go ahead and make that happen now. Okay. Things looking pretty good here. So now our next step is going to be to extend the heel all the way down and sort of flatten out the bottom of the boot. And before I do that, I'm going to do just a little more adjustment and tweaking in my overall shape. So I'm a little happier with what I see. Okay. Let's do a really quick ready check to see who can get up to this point. Okay, so now that we've got that, things look like they're all nicely tweaked. We're going to close... Actually, no, we're not going to close anything up just yet. We're going to bring the back of the heel down. So to do this, I'm going to start by grabbing these 4 edges here along the back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, let me go ahead and make it 6. I'll grab the next 2 up as well, but that's it. Jump over here to the side view, and I'm going to extrude these, pull them down, like so, scale, hit Z and 0 to flatten them out. So we've already seen how to do that. As a matter of fact, once I get that, let me go ahead and pull them up so they're kind of level with this other row. At least relatively close anyway. And we also will probably need to kind of slide them out just a little, probably not too much actually, because the feet are, actually, you know what, I'm going to leave those pretty much vertical. I changed my mind. My prerogative. I do need to kind of scale them out just a little in the X direction, so give them a little more width. Jump over to vertices and make them a much more average U shape. Alright, now, if we take a look at this without the smooth in our way, we have 1, 2, 3 edges we'd like to connect this to. So what I'll do is hit Control R and split this twice to give me a total of 3 edges and just merge these in. Now at this point, it'd be a good idea to start averaging out some of your vertex locations. Now notice when I get to the bottom, I'm using middle mouse to constrain the motion to just going forward. I screwed that up a little bit, but that's okay. I'll keep it close. I'm going to flatten everything back out again anyway. And we can probably average that out a little bit as well. Alright, let's see what that looks like smoothed. Pretty good. Maybe sink that in a little bit again. Now, it's possible when you're modeling that you may look at something like this crease in between here, and you may be enticed to add a little, like another edge of geometry to help that crease be a little more prevalent. You can do that, and on some models even I've been known to do similar things, but consider that in a lot of cases it's actually easier to just create a bump map that traces that edge really well and just let that crease be part of the texture. In most cases that'll be more than enough detail to give a convincing separation between these two objects. Okay, so now let's switch back over to edges. We'll grab these edges, and let's just create our soul from here. So I'll go to the side view. I'm going to, once again, scale, hit Z, and hit 0. So that just flattens those out nicely. And we'll just extrude straight down. Okay, so now we have 14 edges here. It's with the way I'm going to be closing this up, closing up 14 edges, or I'm sorry, closing up an even number of edges is usually easier than just about anything else. And here's how you do it. In this case, I have these two edges that are right here at the front, and I have two more edges I could consider being right at the back. So I'll skip those two edges and go to the ones right behind them and just start closing them off directly across from one another. Grab here, here, hit F, here and here, hit F, and F, and F. So I've got two little triangles at either end. So now I can just hit Control R, split those down the middle, take the resulting vertex at either end, and just merge it in. And there we go. So that's looking pretty good, actually. Maybe do a little bit of tweaking here at the ankle. Tighten up the shape a little bit. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. So let's do one more ready check to allow folks to catch up to this point. Okay, now would be a good time to double check everything you're seeing with the feet and make any adjustments. Like for instance, it's a good idea to make the faces that surround the ankle form a little bit of a circle. It kind of helps that dimple, or the way the ankle protrudes, it helps that look a little more natural. So I'm going to do that a little bit here. I kind of wouldn't mind adding a little more detail right there in that location. So maybe I'll do that. I'll pull these down, pull this down a little bit, let that just kind of become part of the top of the foot. Then let's add another edge loop right in here, and I'll use this to help with that transition from ankle to foot, and then also use it to aid in the shaping of the ankle itself. Now once we get past the heel and the way the heel rounds out, you'll notice that I've taken these two vertices at the kind of the corners of the heel, and I've pulled them apart to let that get a little more bulbous at the end. But then above that, we get to the Achilles tendon, and you can start taking these vertices and pulling them closer to help that become a little more obvious in the shape. Look for areas where the topology could flow a little nicer. Also, I mean, we could also take this edge here at the back of the heel and start to pull that down and make the creasing at the back of the heel a little more, I don't know, just a little more obvious, make it stick out just a little better. A little more prevalent, I think is the word I was desperately searching for. So then I'll bring this row of vertices up and let those kind of help define the shape at the back of the heel. Pull these forward slightly. Alright, I think I'm running out of things that I really want to tweak and adjust here. And you do have to kind of watch out for over-tweaking syndrome. But let me give another glance over at my image planes. There's some areas here that I can kind of pull out, kind of widen out the profile of the foot. We can take the shape of the toes here, and we can kind of pull these down a little bit. And I'd like to take the shape of the sole and adjust it just a little bit. So I'm going to move these out in X a little, and this as well. And I'll take these and kind of slide them in very slightly. And now for the inside of the foot, we'll move these in. In fact, those could go in quite a ways. Move these in as well. So it just kind of makes more of a footprint-like shape. Take these and pull them down a little bit. That's a little bit too far there. I don't really like how far that went in, so let's slide those back out. Alright. So, with that, our boot is essentially finished, and we can go ahead and switch over to a smooth view. We get out of here, just type smooth, and yeah, that's looking pretty good, I think. So let's give one more check for people to have their boots all nicely cleaned up and ready to move on. Alright, so we're just a little bit shy of an hour of class time, so this is a really good stopping point for us. So what I want to do is go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and when we get back, we'll take a look at tackling the leg and getting this boot attached into the body. So I'll go ahead and wrap up this video, and then we'll continue in the next one.